In this lesson, we're going to be going over packet crafting utilities, one of which is a program called Hping. Hping is about a dozen years or so old. It's currently on version 3, and there have been several changes that have taken place in the course of those dozen years or so that it's been around. Hping is used for crafting packets, and that's sometimes a useful thing to be able to use evasive tactics to get around intrusion detection systems or firewalls, or sometimes it's good for just network troubleshooting. So we're going to run Hping and just bring up the help here. Here are the sorts of things that you can do with Hping. Now, up front here, we just have sort of high-level things where you get numeric output, quiet, packet count, you can show the version, and of course the help. Down below is where it gets to be more interesting. The default mode for Hping is TCP, but I can also do raw IP mode, meaning I can craft any sort of IP packet or any protocol that sits above IP. I can do ICMP mode, I can do UDP mode. I can also do things like spoof the source address. I can set the time to live value, set an identification or an ID, and I can do things like splitting packets into fragments, set different things like the source port and the destination port and the window size. I can set all of these TCP flags like SYN, reset, push, ACK, urgent, etc. So let's do a little bit of packet crafting here. I'm going to set off a Wireshark capture, just so we can see what we're doing. And since this type of activity requires administrative privileges, as usual, I'm going to use sudo here. So I'm going to run Hping, and there's my destination. Now I'm going to set the urgent flag, and I'm going to set the SYN flag. I'm going to set a source port of 55355 and a destination port of 8080. And you can see that I'm getting responses back with round trip times of around 1.8 milliseconds or so, somewhere less than 2 milliseconds for the most part. Now let's go back into Wireshark and see what we actually created. I'm going to do a stop. So I've got a fragmented IP. It's a TCP protocol. Wireshark doesn't really quite know what to do with this because it looks completely garbled. And you can see all of the messages that we've sent here. Even though it's TCP, we don't see a source or destination port because Wireshark isn't really sure what's going on because the packet just doesn't look quite right. So these sorts of packets are good for potentially evading IDS and firewalls, as I mentioned. They're also potentially really good at knocking over applications and systems and seeing if there's vulnerabilities there. Sometimes systems and applications don't do well with malformed data, and this is definitely malformed. That's Hping. There are other packet crafting utilities. Another one is called packeth, and it's going to require administrative privileges as well, so I'm going to run it with those. And this is packeth, which is an Ethernet packet generator. This is unlike Hping, which is a command line utility. This here is graphical in nature, which makes it easier to see the different things that you can set and the different variables. So with a MAC header, I can select an address, and in this case, I don't actually have one. So I'm going to leave all of that alone. I'm going to set a VLAN tag, which is the 802.1q, and I can make changes to the 802.1q VLAN fields. I can specify the next layer is going to be IPv4, IPv6, an ARP packet, or some user-defined packet. I can do things like change the IP version. I don't want to send an IPv4. I want to send an IPv5. I can change the protocol, which is the next set of headers, which is going to come below this. So I can change the protocol value here. And I can change all of the IP headers, basically. Everything that's available to set as an IP header is here. The next layer I can choose as TCP, and here I can set my source port and my destination port. And up above, I skipped over this, but it's sort of self-apparent with the source IP and the destination IP. Obviously, if I don't have a destination IP, I don't get the packets where I need them to go. I can set a TCP payload here. I can set a bunch of flags to anything that I want them to be. You notice here there's a pattern and a length. I can fill the TCP payload with a lot of data that's self-generated. So I could have a pattern of AB and a length of 500. If I did an apply pattern, it's going to fill the payload with all of that data. So you can generate a bunch of data automatically without having to do a lot of typing. Packeth also allows you to save a packet and then restore it later, which can save you some time if there's a particular type of packet that you need to use on a regular basis against systems for whatever reason. You can save what the packet looks like and then reload it later. I can select the interface and then I can just do send. In this case, I'm not going to do send, I'm just showing you what it looks like. But when I was ready and I had the IP address and everything in, I could just hit send, and when I was ready to stop, hit stop. So Hping and Packeth are both really good packet generating and packet crafting utilities.